and welcome to Global Matters. South Africa has again approached the International Court of Justice, ICJ, with the aim of urging the World Court to order a halt to Israel's offensive on Rafah. In its argument, South Africa said that Israel's genocide had reached a new and horrific stage. It then urged the court to stop Israel in order to ensure the survival of the Palestinian people. Let's take a listen.
When we last appeared before this court to halt this genocidal process, to preserve Palestine and its people. Instead, Israel's genocide has continued apace and has just reached a new and horrific stage. Israel has sought to hide its crimes through the weaponization of international humanitarian law. It pretends that the civilians it ruthlessly kills through its 2,000-pound bombs, through its targeted airstrikes, through its artificial intelligence systems, through its executions, are human shields. This whitewashing of Israel's genocide misses the key and fundamental element, that of the massive and still mounting evidence of Israel's genocidal intent.
The key point today is that Israel's declared aim of wiping Gaza from the map is about to be realized. Further, evidence of appalling crimes and atrocities is literally being destroyed and bulldozed, in effect wiping the slate clean for those who've committed these crimes and making a mockery of justice.
Right. The Israeli government, in its defense at the court earlier today, describes South Africa's claim as baseless and only exists on the social media. It denied any act of genocide and it claimed its military abides by international law. Let's take a listen.
Mr. President, the State of Israel requests the court to reject the request for the modification and indication of provisional measures submitted by the Republic of South Africa.
This case, even by its very name, the application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip, suggests an inversion of reality. The decision of the Israeli cabinet and their implementation on the ground leave no doubt that South Africa's allegations regarding genocide are completely and utterly baseless.
All right, the 2 days of hearing at the International Court of Justice are part of a case brought by South Africa accusing Israel of genocide. South Africa had last week asked for extra measures to protect Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians shelter. It also wants the court to order Israel to allow the United Nations officials, humanitarian groups, journalists and investigators have access to Rafah. The war began when Hamas militants attacked Israel on October 7, killing 1,200 people in Israel and abducting more than 250 others, according to the Israeli information. In January, the International Court of Justice had ordered Israel to ensure its troops commit no genocidal acts against Palestinians in Gaza and allow in more humanitarian and preserve any evidence of violation. On the show today, we'll be taking a look at the issues around Israel and the Palestinian war, especially the current onslaught on Rafah, with specific focus to the case that South Africa has again brought to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in Hague. My guests are seasoned lawyers. The one that's currently on is a seasoned lawyer with practices in the UK, US, and indeed Africa. I'm now being joined by Kingsley Onyemenem. Kingsley Onyemenem is of the KC Law Chamber of Solicitors with practices across Africa, Europe, and United States of America. Kingsley, thank you for taking the time to join us on the program.
Good afternoon, and thank you, viewers.
Also, we'll go on a very short break now. When we come back, we'll begin to look at some of the issues I've raised in my intro. We'll be back, don't go away. We follow the stories and bring you the report from anywhere to everywhere, either global,
foreign or diplomatic relations, even diaspora matter. And we bring you the behind the scene of the stories through our studio analysis. This hand that has represented the symbol of unity after the war in Rwanda.
Good and efficient legal process is one of the main things that we realize lead to the breaches of human rights in Nigeria.
My assessment of the war in Ukraine is very unfortunate.
Attack on the Israeli government, an attack on the Israeli soldiers by Hamas, by the jihadist group,
by the occupier,
and other terrorists.
by the people. No.
That will bring you all here on Global Matter.
All right, thank you for still being there. We're looking at the issues between Israel and South Africa. A case that has been brought to the ICJ by South Africa. Remember, in January, the ICJ made a, we would not call it an order, kind of a request asking Israel to ensure that it abides by international law in its war in the Palestinian, on the Gaza people and on the Palestinian people. But joining me now is Kingsley Onyemenem. Kingsley Onyemenem is a seasoned lawyer with international experience, looking at the issues we're talking about today. Kingsley, thank you for taking the time off your very busy schedule to join me on the show. Let's create some kind of background to what we're looking at, the case between Israel and South Africa. It does appear South Africa is not ready to let go in its case against Israel concerning the war in the Palestinian land. Yet Israel, despite series of resolutions, the United Nations Security Council resolution asking it to halt the attack on the Palestinian people, and of course the ICJ ruling, Israel still continues on this attack. What are your thoughts?
Thank you for having me. The case that South Africa has brought against Israel, it's quite a serious one that the whole world has been engulfed in. As you know, there's protests all over the world, especially in the US, and also partly in the UK, with respect to this. Not mentioning other countries that this protests are happening, but fundamentally, what the South African lawyers are simply asking the court to do at the moment is to order Israel to halt its military incursions into Rafah. Rafah seems to be the last holding point, and their fear is that if they are allowed to proceed, the Palestinian land, Gaza itself, will be decimated. There will be no room for any possible future reconstruction of that land. There has been, as at date, over 35,000 deaths killed by the Israeli military in this effort, following the 7th of October attack by Hamas. And of course, one accepts the fact that Hamas obviously started this whole particular issue, but South Africa feels that the response that has been meted out by Israel against the Palestinians, it's excessive, and so hence the case has been brought to ask them to order Israel to stop this incursion and the killing and the maiming and destruction. But I think the difficulty that we have is that, as we know, unlike the ICC, the ICJ is only usually there to give advisory opinions. Yes, its rulings are binding, but the problem that we have is that it's unenforceable in most instances, if not all instances. They've gone to the ICJ because the ICJ was established after the Second World War, and the sole purpose was to settle dispute between states and nations.
Well, understanding the fact that the ICJ in January made a kind of a ruling technically asking Israel to ensure that he did not commit genocide, and also ensure the preservation of what the court calls evidence. Yet we see Israel continues on this bombardment of the Gaza Strip, bombardment of several areas in the Palestinian land. Yet the Security Council also made a resolution asking Israel to end its attack on Gaza. But Israel continues, as it appears, to ignore this. Are there ways the world, either the Security Council or the ICJ, can enforce it on Israel to obey either the ICJ ruling or the Security Council resolution?
Well, the ICJ ruling, it's as I explained earlier on, it is unenforceable in that court. What it would give is advisory opinion, and South Africa concern is one that we all have, because as you know, there's no journalist who are allowed in the Gaza Strip to record what's happening. There's no investigator, there's no international investigators who are there, and part of the concerns that South Africa has is that evidence, as the killings are ongoing and the destructions are ongoing, and mindfully so, there are children and women who have been killed, several thousands of them. In fact, the majority of them who have died are women and children. South Africa's concern is that evidence are being destroyed, and people are being killed, and it will be quite difficult if at the end of all this action by Israel, for there to be anything to hold them accountable for. So I think the problem that we have is the forum at the moment. It is hoped that the Security Council and the United Nations and some national leaders, say the U.S. President Biden himself, would be able to sort of intervene. I think you've had Biden recently take a stand with respect to not giving Israel the weapons that it needed, but this was reversed just a few days ago. But if international pressure can be brought to bear on them, and it has to be genuine international pressure, not just merely words, because I think what we've seen at the moment from the U.S. President are words. But the ICJ, I fear, although they have given this ruling for the killings to stop and the genocidal acts by Israel to stop, it has continued, unfortunately. And I think perhaps this might go on for quite some time unless something else is done to stop Israel.
Well, one can understand the fact that the ICJ's ruling, though, could be binding, but because it does not have enforcement power, nations do sometime, well, like Nigeria, when it gave its ruling concerning Nigeria and the Bakassi Peninsula, other nations like Israel can try to play around it. However, what about the Security Council resolution? The Security Council resolution is binding, and the Security Council has enforcement power, yet in its resolution of 2728, resolution number 2728 of 2024, made on the 25th of March, asking Israel to cease his attack on Gaza, and then it appears there's been this violation of this resolution, yet the Security Council hasn't taken any action despite its enforcement power.
Again, Tunde, this is down to politics, and unfortunately, what we have here behind the door politics. There's rhetorics in open media. There is the threats that sanctions will be imposed, actions will be taken, but nothing has. We've seen nothing happen yet. All we've simply had is talks and orders given to Israel not to. But I think Israel is aware that it has the backing of the U.S. and it knows that with the backing of the U.S., they're literally untouchable and nothing would happen to them, whether the Security Council, stipulates what must and what must not happen. Yes, if the Security Council truly means to carry out this how would I put it? This West that is given to Israel to abide by, then it can. But the question is whether would it? I'm not sure whether it would. Not anytime soon. And that's pretty sad.
All right, Kingsley, thanks for that. But quickly, if you consider we know there's always been this disparity between the global north and the global south. Of course, the developed and the underdeveloped or developing world. You have the Security Council resolution on Libya some time ago that was properly executed by the West, leading to the death of Gaddafi. And then we have a resolution now that has now been ignored and technically been violated without any action. So you spoke about international politics, but where does this place both the United Nations? I know there has been multiple United Nations resolutions that Israel has ignored. However, it appears the Security Council resolution is about the first that it has ignored now. Where does this place the United Nations and the Security Council in its attempt to ensure peace among nations?
I think one could, based on what we've seen, argue that they are unfair arbiters of the rules. Just like you've said, we know what's happened with Libya. We know what's happened with some of the Arab Spring countries in the past, and what measures and how quickly those measures were put in place and enforced. Again, it doesn't speak well of the Security Council, and I think it's important that they save face and be seen to be fair in their dealing with every party that appears before them. Genocide is genocide, especially where the evidence abounds. And I think that actions should be taken immediately. Look, not for once do I accept that what Hamas did in October was right. In fact, I'm a human being. If my family was attacked and my children killed, I would go all out. And perhaps that's what Israel is doing. But I think there's got to be a point where you say, well, enough is enough. And I think this is where we are at the moment. This is what South Africa is trying to tell the world, that it's important that we stop this. South Africa, as you know, has a history of apartheid, a very, very sad and sickening one. And they fought through it. So they understand what is going on, and they understand that they have a duty towards, be it the Palestinians or be it any other country, to come forward and speak out.
Well, while we're trying to, let's see if we can play back the reactions of the South African official and their lawyers at the ICJ, and then the reactions of Israel. What my producers are trying to kill that before it comes up again. We'd like to, okay, let's quickly, Kingsley, don't go away. Let's quickly listen to, again, why South Africa is bringing this up before the ICJ, and again, the reaction of Israel. Don't go away. Let's take a listen again.
When we last appeared before this court to halt this genocidal process, to preserve Palestine and its people, instead, Israel's genocide has continued apace and has just reached a new and horrific stage. Israel has sought to hide its crimes through the weaponization of international humanitarian law. It pretends that the civilians it ruthlessly kills through its 2,000-pound bombs through its targeted airstrikes, through its artificial intelligence systems, through its executions, are human shields. This whitewashing of Israel's genocide misses the key and fundamental element, that of the massive and still mounting evidence of Israel's genocidal intent.
The key point today is that Israel's declared aim of wiping Gaza from the map is about to be realized. Further, evidence of appalling crimes and atrocities is literally being destroyed and bulldozed, in effect wiping the slate clean for those who've committed these crimes and making a mockery of justice.
Mr. President, the State of Israel requests the court to reject the request for the modification and indication of provisional measures submitted by the Republic of South Africa.
This case, even by its very name, the application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip, suggests an inversion of reality. The decision of the Israeli cabinet and their implementation on the ground leave no doubt that South Africa's allegations regarding genocide are completely and utterly baseless.
The two sides are taking a legal argument on the matter before the ICJ. And what is clear, I mean, if you listen to the South African lawyer there, say Israel is about actualizing its promise of eliminating, well, what Israel did say was to eliminate Hamas, not the Palestinian people. Then you see the South African lawyer going further to say, look, it's just eliminating the Palestinian people. And then the fact of the case is say, look, we have right to self-defense, and the issue of genocide does not occur in this place. The court hasn't decided the case of genocide. It's going to take a long years, many years, because ICJ's ruling can take 10, 15 years. But where we are now, how do you see this case going? The first one, the first provisional measure, not respected by Israel, technically say it did. If this another provisional measure is ordered, will Israel obey again? How do you see this ending?
If I may, Tunde, you mentioned about the fact that the South African legal representatives who had gone further. They didn't go further. I think if you recall back to Prime Minister Netanyahu's statement at the earlier stages of this question, he made it very clear, and it's in public, it's in print, black and white, that the intention is to wipe out everything
Hamas.
that works.
Hamas.
Well, Hamas, yes, but you then follow that with the action that followed after that and until present, and you'd find that it points to one thing, and that is, you're preventing AIDS from reaching people. People don't have water. There's no light. There's no medical facilities. People are dying, malnutrition. There's all sort of things that are ongoing there. So Israel, South Africa has a place, and rightfully so, to advance that argument. If I were their lawyers, I would advance that. There is evidence on a daily basis, and I think part of the concerns that we have and that they have, and I think the court should also have, is the fact that Israel has not abided by any of those provisions that's been given to them to abide to. You would also note that the Israeli government, the Israelis' lawyers' argument is that the case is unfounded. There's no evidence. If it's unfounded that there's no evidence, allow investigators to go in, allow journalists to go in, allow evidence to be collected. Because I'm sure that if they do go in there will be abundance of evidence to demonstrate what we all see on TV quite clearly. It's quite a sad day for the international community. It's quite a sad day for those bodies that have been set up, whose job is to sort of deal fairly with the states and nations who have signed up to their conventions.
Right, thanks a lot, Kingsley. As we continue to monitor the proceedings at the ICJ and, of course, the situation with the United Nations and those who have signed up to the treaties of protecting and defending the integrity of states in cases of disputes among states, and how both the Security Council of the United Nations and the United Nations as a general body have been reacting to this continuous disobedience or disregard to this resolution by one state without any action being taken. So continue to monitor. That places a whole lot of responsibility on the United Nations and its relevance in the current dispensation, as it were. Kingsley, thanks a lot for your participation in the program today. Continue to monitor what is going on. I will bring you back for further assessment.
Thank you, Tunde. I must say that we should commend South Africa for standing out. We must commend them for standing out.
All right, thanks a lot. Of course, indeed, we do commend South Africa, and also we like to say that Israel, again, has the right to self-defense. But there should be a time you say, well, enough is enough. All right, thank you, guys. That's how we can go on the program today. Say appreciation to the team that's made it possible. See you again.